going. The scale in here is incredible.
December 2017. A research team exploring ice caves near Mount Erebus, Antarctica's most active volcano, made a discovery that forced them to seal the cave entrance and classify their findings. Inside a chamber warmed by volcanic heat, they found organisms that had been frozen for thousands of years. When they brought samples back to the lab, something impossible happened. The organisms started moving, not slowly awakening, not gradually coming back to life. They activated immediately, as if they'd been waiting. And the DNA analysis revealed something that made the lead scientists say 4 words that changed everything.
This isn't from Earth.
What they found in that cave challenges everything we know about evolution, extinction, and whether we're truly alone on this planet. Mount Erebus stands 12,448 feet above Antarctica's frozen landscape, the southernmost active volcano on Earth. It's been erupting continuously for at least 1.3 million years, maintaining a permanent lava lake at its summit that glows red against the polar darkness. But the truly bizarre feature of Erebus isn't the lava lake. It's the ice caves. Volcanic heat melts the ice from below, creating networks of tunnels and caverns that wind through the glaciers surrounding the mountain. These caves exist in a strange thermal zone where scorching volcanic gases meet ancient ice, creating environments that shouldn't exist. Inside these caves, temperatures can reach 25 degrees Celsius, warm enough for liquid water, while just meters away, the surface temperature is -40. Steam rises from cracks in the floor. Ice crystals form on the ceiling. It's like standing at the boundary between 2 different worlds. Scientists have known about these caves since the 1970s, but exploring them is extraordinarily dangerous. Toxic gases seep from volcanic vents. The ice ceiling can collapse without warning. Routes that existed one day vanish the next as the glacier shifts. In 2017, a joint research team from Montana State University and New Mexico Tech decided to map the cave systems using specialized equipment. They were looking for extremophile bacteria, organisms that thrive in harsh conditions. What they found was far stranger than bacteria. Deep inside one cave, in a chamber that had been sealed by ice for an unknown period, they discovered a pocket of perfectly preserved organic material. Not fossils, not mineralized remains, soft tissue, DNA, cells that still had intact membranes. The preservation was so perfect that under the microscope, the specimens looked fresh, like they died yesterday instead of thousands of years ago. Dr. Keridwen Fraser, one of the lead researchers, described it as
like finding a frozen time capsule with the lock still intact.
They extracted samples carefully, keeping them frozen, and transported them back to the research station for analysis. That's when things got weird. In the lab, researchers began the standard protocol. Thaw a small sample, extract DNA, sequence it, compare it to known organisms in the database. The DNA sequencing failed multiple times. The genetic material was there, clearly visible under electron microscopes, but it wasn't organizing into recognizable patterns. The base pairs were wrong. The structure was off. It was DNA-like, but fundamentally different. Dr. Fraser's team brought in geneticists from 3 different institutions. All of them reached the same conclusion. This organism's genetic code uses a different biochemical system than anything else on Earth. Every living thing we know uses the same basic genetic alphabet: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. 4 nucleotide bases that combine in different sequences to encode life. These organisms had those 4 bases plus 2 others that don't exist in terrestrial biology. It's not that the bases were mutated or damaged. They were additional, functional components of a genetic system more complex than ours. It's like discovering a language that uses not just 26 letters, but 35, and the extra 9 letters express concepts our language can't convey. The implications were staggering. Either these organisms evolved independently from all other life on Earth, developing a completely separate genetic system, or they didn't evolve on Earth at all. Then came the morphology analysis. Under microscope examination, the cellular structure was bizarre. The organisms appeared to be multicellular, but the cells were connected in networks that didn't match any known phylum. Some cells were photosynthetic, containing structures similar to chloroplasts. Others were clearly heterotrophic, designed to consume organic material, but they existed in the same organism, as if a single creature could photosynthesize like a plant and hunt like an animal simultaneously. One specimen showed what appeared to be a primitive nervous system, bundles of conductive tissue suggesting the ability to sense and respond to environmental stimuli. But the tissue structure was wrong. Instead of neurons firing electrochemically like Earth organisms, these used a different mechanism involving crystalline structures. The researchers were baffled. These weren't bacteria, they weren't archaea, they weren't fungi, plants, or animals. They didn't fit anywhere on the tree of life, so they did something controversial. They tried to culture them. Standard procedure when studying frozen microorganisms is to keep them frozen or carefully controlled during thawing. Rapid temperature changes can rupture cell membranes and destroy delicate structures. But these organisms had been frozen in the cave for potentially tens of thousands of years. The researchers assumed they were long dead, interesting only for their genetic novelty. They were wrong. When samples were placed in a nutrient solution at room temperature, something extraordinary happened. Within hours, the specimens began metabolizing, not slowly reactivating, like organisms coming out of dormancy, immediately functioning, as if they'd never been frozen at all. Cell membranes repaired themselves, internal structures reorganized. Within 48 hours, the organisms were actively growing, reproducing, spreading through the culture medium. Dr. Luke Sandro, a microbiologist on the team, described watching this happen as like seeing a computer reboot. They didn't gradually wake up, they just turned on. The growth rate was alarming. Most extremophiles reproduce slowly, conserving energy in harsh environments. These organisms doubled their population every 3 hours at room temperature, faster than E. coli, one of the fastest growing bacteria known. Under controlled conditions, researchers observed them adapting in real time to changing environments. When exposed to higher temperatures, they modified their cell membranes within hours. When nutrients were restricted, they shifted metabolic pathways immediately. This isn't how evolution works on Earth. Adaptation takes generations. Mutations occur randomly, and natural selection favors beneficial ones over time. But these organisms were adapting within a single generation, actively rewriting their own biology. The team tested them under various conditions: extreme cold, extreme heat, high radiation, acidic environments, alkaline environments, low oxygen, no oxygen. The organisms survived everything. Not just survived, they thrived. They were more resilient than tardigrades, more adaptable than the most extreme extremophiles ever discovered. Then someone made a critical mistake. A culture dish was left unsealed overnight. By morning, the organisms had escaped into the lab environment. The containment breach was discovered during a routine sterility check. Samples from supposedly clean areas of the lab tested positive for the cave organisms. They'd colonized air filtration systems, grown in microscopic water droplets condensed on surfaces, even survived in the spaces between sealed containers and their lids. The research station went into immediate lockdown. All personnel were quarantined. The lab was sealed. Decontamination protocols began. But here's what terrified the researchers. The organisms weren't behaving like terrestrial microbes. They weren't just spreading randomly. They seemed to be exploring. Security footage showed culture dishes that had been placed in specific locations around the lab. By morning, the organisms had grown tendrils, hair-thin filaments extending from the original cultures, all oriented toward heat sources, light sources, or areas with higher nutrient concentrations. It looked like purposeful movement, like they were testing their environment, learning about their surroundings. Dr. Fraser's team implemented maximum biosafety protocols, the same procedures used for handling the deadliest pathogens. Everyone involved underwent medical screening, blood tests, tissue samples, full genetic screening. They found traces of the organisms in everyone's nasal passages and on skin surfaces. The organisms had been in contact with human tissue. But there was no infection, no immune response, no illness. The organisms didn't seem to interact with human cells at all. They existed on surfaces, in mucous membranes, completely ignoring the human body's biology. It was as if they recognized that human tissue wasn't a viable environment and simply avoided it. This was both reassuring and deeply unsettling. It suggested the organisms had some kind of selective mechanism, the ability to distinguish between suitable and unsuitable hosts. After 3 weeks of strict containment, the organisms were successfully eradicated from the lab using a combination of extreme heat, UV radiation, and chemical sterilization. All samples were destroyed, except for a few kept in maximum containment for further study. The research team prepared to publish their findings. Then they received a directive from the National Science Foundation and the Antarctic Treaty System. Classify everything, seal the caves, tell no one. Before the classification order came through, researchers had completed preliminary genetic analysis. What they found challenges fundamental assumptions about the origin of life on Earth. The organism's DNA, despite its unusual structure, showed remarkable sophistication.
Like finding a
Error correction
frozen
mechanisms
time
more
capsule
advanced than
with the
anything in
lock
terrestrial
still
biology.
intact.
Regulatory systems that could activate or deactivate entire metabolic pathways instantly. But here's the disturbing part. When compared to Earth's genetic database, the organisms showed no evolutionary relationship to anything. Not distant cousins, not ancient ancestors, completely separate. Every organism on Earth shares certain genetic sequences, evidence of common ancestry. Humans and bacteria, despite 1 billion years of divergent evolution, still have genetic similarities that trace back to the universal common ancestor. These organisms had nothing in common with Earth life. Different genetic code, different cellular machinery, different biochemistry. There are 3 possible explanations, and all of them are unsettling. First possibility, they evolved on Earth independently, representing a second genesis of life. This would mean life started twice on this planet, using completely different chemical pathways, and one lineage survived in isolated Antarctic caves, while the other lineage, our lineage, spread across the globe. This seems statistically impossible. If life emerged twice on Earth, we should see evidence of both lineages mixing, competing, sharing environments. But we don't. These organisms appear to have been isolated for their entire evolutionary history. Second possibility, they're not from Earth. They arrived here from somewhere else, either through panspermia, carried on meteorites, or through some other mechanism we don't understand. If true, this would be the most significant discovery in human history. Definitive proof that life exists elsewhere in the universe, that Earth's biosphere is not unique, that we're not alone. But it raises immediate questions. Why don't we see these organisms anywhere else on Earth? Why are they confined to volcanic caves in Antarctica? If they arrive from space, they should be distributed globally. Third possibility, they're not natural at all. They were engineered, created by something with advanced knowledge of genetics and biochemistry. This is the explanation no one wants to seriously consider, because it implies the existence of an intelligence capable of designing life, something that visited Antarctica and left these organisms behind. The research team analyzed the organism's genetic structure for signs of design. What they found was ambiguous. The DNA showed extreme optimization, almost too perfect, with redundancy systems and fail-safes that natural evolution rarely produces. But design implies a designer, and that's where the evidence ends and speculation begins. After the classification order, the Mount Erebus cave systems were sealed. Official reports stated the closure was due to volcanic instability and unsafe gas concentrations. The real reason remains classified, but researchers involved in the project have hinted at deeper concerns. If organisms this resilient and adaptable exist in one cave, what else might be frozen beneath Antarctica's ice? The continent is 98% covered in ice, averaging 1.2 miles thick. We've explored less than 0.01% of the subglacial environment. Thousands of volcanic systems exist beneath Antarctic ice. Each one creates thermal zones where liquid water can exist, where warmth melts frozen time capsules that have been sealed for millennia. What if the organisms discovered in Mount Erebus aren't unique? What if they're everywhere beneath the ice, dormant, waiting for conditions to change? Climate change is accelerating Antarctic ice melt. Glaciers are retreating. Ice shelves are collapsing. As the ice melts, these organisms could be released into modern ecosystems, and we have no idea how they'd interact with contemporary life. Would they compete, cooperate, outcompete existing species, and spread globally? The organisms showed no interest in infecting humans. But what about other species? Plants, marine life, terrestrial ecosystems that have never encountered this alien biology? Some researchers involved in the project have spoken off the record about additional discoveries made in the caves. Structures that look too regular to be natural formations. Patterns in the ice that suggested deliberate arrangement. Objects that defied easy classification. None of this has been officially confirmed. All documentation remains classified. The caves remain sealed, monitored remotely, with strict prohibitions against entry. But Antarctica is changing. Ice that's been frozen for millions of years is melting. Ancient environments are being exposed, and whatever's been preserved in that ice is waking up. So what did scientists really find frozen in Antarctica's caves? Organisms with impossible genetics. Biology that doesn't fit the tree of life. Creatures that survived tens of thousands of years in ice and activated the moment they thawed, adapting to new environments with a speed that defies evolution. Were they from Earth? Maybe. Were they engineered? Possibly. Are they alone? Or are there more waiting beneath the ice? We don't know. What we do know is this: we've barely scratched the surface of what's hidden beneath Antarctic ice. Every drill core, every cave expedition, every subglacial lake we probe reveals environments and organisms we never expected. And as the ice melts, as climate change exposes regions that have been frozen since before humans existed, we're going to find more. More impossible organisms, more unexplained structures, more evidence that we don't fully understand the history of life on this planet. The scariest part isn't what we found in that cave, it's what we haven't found yet. What's still frozen, still waiting, still preserved in ice that's 2 miles thick and millions of years old. Because if something that strange exists in one volcanic cave on one mountain, what else is down there in the dark? In the cold, in places we'll never reach before the ice releases it for us? What do you think those organisms really are? Ancient Earth life? Alien biology? Something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you want more discoveries that challenge everything we thought we knew, subscribe. Because Antarctica is giving up its secrets, and what we're finding is stranger than anyone imagined.